and we're underway and racing. Stay on the brakes, goodness me, what a launch! The outside of turn 1 and takes the lead of the race.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome along to another round of your APC season. That is not what I wanted to show, so we're going to go straight into the action because that is not the thing I did. That's fine. We'll go with it anyway. Welcome to round number 4 of your APC season. The game audio is very loud here around Silverstone tonight. Of course, a home track for many involved in the APC community at the moment, and tonight to bring you the action, it's one of the many who call this one home. My name is Joseph Black, aka Cockcast. Alongside me is Stadbody 989. Good evening. How excited are we for Silverstone? Have we got any facts just to bring us in?
Well, hello there. It's great to be here, and of course Silverstone, a fantastic circuit, racing really possible. And also, when I'm at uni, my local circuit, I'm literally 25 minutes away from it. So a really intriguing racing prospect just because of the nature of Silverstone. And strategy will probably play quite a big role here because strategy is a little bit different to the general sort of way it works. Usually you're going sort of medium hard, hard medium. Here, a medium soft or soft medium strategy is very viable because the softs do not die quickly at all. They go for quite a while. So we're going to be seeing some different strategies here. Whether somebody tries a medium hard compared to the medium soft, we shall see.
I think medium hard is going to be a safe strategy. Medium soft would be a gamble, but of course we've seen gambles made and pay off, and this circuit is one that suits itself to said gambles. I mean, Silverstone, what a circuit we have in store tonight. It's just such a great racing circuit. It's just got so many overtaking opportunities, and tonight the drivers will be exploiting them as much as they possibly can. We've got our first driver on to a lap of Stuart Woodard, who is coming through now at sector number 1, and he's going to try to set as strong a lap as he possibly can, and we will see where the benchmark is for the McLaren, as it's of course purple in the first sector. His teammate comes across the first sector split time as well. It'll be the two McLarens very eager to get going here tonight, and Krypton World for him. He is going to be ready to try to set a particularly strong lap, I think, and he won't be the only one. We will have plenty of laps thrown in, hopefully in and around the high 27 mark, as we head through the Grand Prix or head through the qualifying session and then into the Grand Prix. Krypton World 104 within the first 2 sectors, and he's heading through the third one now. Not many corners around this third sector, not many corners admittedly around this circuit at all, but he's going to come around to the final couple. It's only one more braking zone in that final sector if you're brave enough. If you're sensible, it's 2, but Krypton World up to line 28.9, and that's what I'm talking about when I say that we want those high 20s, as that is Jedi going up into P2, and that'll be a Ferrari of Chenkovan around the final corner at 26.8, already 2 seconds ahead, Krypton World, and setting that a benchmark. And of course, we have a notable absence tonight, as WHF Aero, aka Aaron McGurk, is not racing, and so Chenkovan can extend that championship advantage right at the top of the table. We've got a few more drivers to come around the final couple of corners. This is the Williams, who's going to try and come up and beat a 26.8. He's not going to do that. He is, though, going to slot into second, and he's immediately displaced by Daniel Riley. Not turned his PC on for 10 days, but a good enough lap for the front row after the provisional first runs. A Shack Attack goes for a massive slide, and that's the Ferrari out of the session, straight into the wall, out of the Maggots and Beckett section. And that is not what he would have wanted to see, not even able to set a lap in this session. And he's going to be starting right at the back of this grid. But his teammate Chenkovan at the moment sitting atop this field, right in pole position. But it's an important weekend for Ferrari, isn't it, in the Constructors' Championship?
Yeah, definitely. With only one Williams on the grid tonight, they have a big chance to extend that gap. And Ferrari have been the Constructors' Champions now 2 seasons in a row. And I think, again, so far this season, they are proving why they have been the Constructors' Champions for the last couple of seasons. But a really big race tonight for them, just to extend that gap. And hopefully for them, Ethan Shackleton can come through in the race.
Yeah, they're hoping so because, of course, Chenkovan has been the star power, the real point scorer so far, and he is, of course, the championship leader. Speaking of the championship, we can take a look now at a couple of the drivers and the constructors' standings as well. So that is Chenkovan on top in this championship. In P2, you do have Aaron McGurk. But with him not racing tonight, it's a huge advantage for Chenkovan to break away at the top. He's, at the moment, 8 points ahead. And if he picks up any points, then it will increase. If he picks up the maximum points, 26, he will then be 34 ahead, if my math serves me correctly. And that is a huge margin in such a short championship. It is fair to be said. We'll be 4 rounds into it after this race session. And then Ethan Shackleton, he might be able to take P2 in this this championship, and at the moment in this qualifying session he is out, and Chenkovan, his teammate, is looking to get onto the front row. It is Ethan Shackleton, by the way, not Jamie Shackleton, as I incorrectly said last time out, and it wasn't pointed out to me until after the race. And well, to be fair, pretty good name, pretty good player as well. Chenkovan, a little bit faster, 26.6. And he maintains his lead right at the top of those standings, and he's still on top of the drivers' standings. The constructors, though, well, it's a similar situation. It's Ferrari on the top, 115 to Williams is 82, as mentioned earlier. There is only one Williams out of Lucas Aracini racing tonight, and he's currently in P3 in this qualifying session, and quite a large margin, 1.7 seconds to Andrea Chenkovan in P1, and he'll be hoping to try to bridge that gap in qualifying. And then also into the race session, we have McLaren sitting in P3, Kick Sauber sitting in P4, and then nobody else, of course, with any points. Both Kick Saubers racing tonight, both McLarens racing tonight. It's a good opportunity for them to try to close in on Williams for P2 in those constructors' standings. And, well, we shall see where they end up. We've got Stuart Woodard in Sector 1, that being the Kyle Stuart Woodard. I've just bigged him up a lot by giving him proper title, 27.9 in that first sector, and pretty decent time. We will see where he is in comparison to the rest of the field, including his teammate, as that is yellow flags for Lucas Aracini getting out of the way. He's heading through now sector number 2, and hopefully he can hook it up a little bit better than Ethan Shackleton did earlier, of course, on the exit of Beckett, crashing out and retiring from the session, demonstrating quite how close those walls are. And, well, Stuart Woodard is going to try to avoid said walls. There are 3 drivers with 24 points in the drivers' standings, and that being both of the McLarens, Kyle and Connor, Stuart Woodard, and Daniel Riley as well. Now, a couple more corners to go for the McLaren. He's going to try to beat his teammate, who is currently on a 28.9, and Brian Moore just ahead of him with a 28.8, about 6/10 or 600ths even faster. He goes up into P3, so a strong lap from Kyle Stuart Woodard to find himself into 3rd place. That second row of the grid and the outside line for turn number 1, which brings a significant advantage when you head to that all-important turn 1, lap 1. We are now getting ready for the final couple of runs. We've got Lucas Aracini out on circuit, hoping to get that slipstream from Stuart Woodard ahead, but he may be hampered He's a 10th up in that first sector, and he's going to try to beat Stuart Woodard into 3rd place. He's got 6/10 though to gain, almost exactly, if he wants to get onto the front row of the grid, or the provisional front row at the moment, held by Chenkovan with a 26.6 and Daniel Riley with a 27.7. That is yellow flags for Stuart Woodard diving out of the way, just as Seracini did on that previous lap, to get out of the way and allow the lap to be uninterrupted. And that is what he is doing right now at the moment. He's heading through Maggots, and Becketson invalidates his lap on Maggots. And so he will not be improving on his time. We'll see where he is. He wasn't actually up, but that might have been a case of him backing out. We've got Brian Moore on the circuit. These two likely to either come in, or Seracini will go for another one, but almost certainly Stuart Woodard will come in. And it is now handing the mantle over to Brian Moore to see where the kick Sauber can end up. His teammate on the front row of the grid, Daniel Riley, over a second ahead of Moore at the moment. And, well, we will see where the kick Sauber ends up. The representative of the Isle of Man, the only representative of the Isle of Man, possibly in the entire league racing scene, but more to the point, a very, very strong racer and a representative that currently has 14 points in the driver's standings. He's 10 off of being in P4 as it stands at the moment. He's in P8, so it's oh so close down the bottom. And if any of them get a good result, they could be touching the likes of Shackleton and McGurk points-wise. McGurk, of course, will not be gaining any points tonight, which is what I mean by that. For example, if one of Riley or the Stuart Woodards gets maximum points, they will head up to exactly 60, and they'll just be 2 points behind the Irishman, who is currently in P2 in the standings. They're going to be hoping as well for Chenkovan. Everybody really is going to be hoping for Chenkovan to have a poor weekend. That's the exception being Chenkovan himself, who will want to be in P1 come the end of this qualifying session and come the end of the race as well. Up comes Brian Moore to the first sector split time. He's down by 0.5 of a second. And, well, he could have lost that time in different parts of this circuit. We shall wait and see for where the kick Sauber ends up as he's heading now through some of the most iconic corners. Of course, that one you'll recognise for a particular incident. 4 years ago now. Time flies, eh? Now heading through the Maggots and Beckett section. Does he invalidate just like Seracini did? No, he doesn't. And he keeps it straight in a straight line on the circuit and comes across with a 104.2. Allegedly purple, but we know what the F1 game is like, and we can't wait for F1 25. He's almost half a second up as he heads through, and he could be challenging for P4, maybe even P3 if he hooks his final sector up right. Trying to take a wide line into the final chicane, coming out of it, invalidating the lap on that final corner, and that is devastating stuff for him. He comes across the line, improving by 1/4 of a second, but oh, what could have been for Brian Moore. We've got 4 minutes 14 left in the session. Everybody else sitting in the pit lane, and we are waiting for those final runs to begin. But in the meantime, I think you might have a couple of little tidbits, a couple of little facts about Silverstone to bring to us.
Yeah, so Silverstone, of course, a really interesting circuit. I mean, one fact quite personal to me, I got my first league race win at Silverstone back in F1 23 nearly about a year ago now. And yeah, Silverstone was, of course, home to so many great battles. You know, Michael Schumacher and David Coulthard had a really good one here when we still had the iconic bridge corner section, which was obviously taken out and changed in, I think it officially got shut in 2011. It's a circuit that has changed over time with 3 different layouts. Of course, you've got the national, the international, and the Grand Prix circuit, which is the one we are on right now. But home to many battles. Of course, at this corner, Michael Schumacher went off in 1998 and ended up in the hospital because of the crash. So many things have happened here over the years. And of course, more notably over the last few years, as you earlier mentioned, the incident that happened at Cox Corner with Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, a potentially championship fight defining moment at that point in the season.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was actually one of the most championship defining moments as the the fortress that is Silverstone for Lewis Hamilton was, I mean, not breached, but he came under threat by Max Verstappen, and of course, that championship went the way it went. I have no opinions either way because I was not watching Formula One in 2021, or so I like to tell
Were you
people when
really
they ask
not?
me for my opinion. Well, I sort of had a vague interest, but I didn't really care, and I didn't really get back into it until 22. So I missed out
wow.
on some good stuff.
So you're new then. You're fairly new.
Well, I used to watch it back in I think it was like 2012 to 2016, and then I completely stopped caring about it, and then picked it back up 22. So, I mean, I'm sort of new. I think it's fair to be said, but I'm not completely new, and well, it is what it is, and I have brushed up on my knowledge. Don't be afraid. I have brushed up on my knowledge. I know all about the 2020s and Robert Kubica and George Russell, the goated lineup for Williams. And what a lineup that is. Yellow flags out in Sector 1 or Sector 2 even. I believe that might just be Stuart Woodard moving out of the way of Cenkovan. So all is well there. We've got Daniel Riley heading through Sector 1. We've got Luca Serafini heading through Sector number 2. He's improved by just over half a tenth in that first sector. And now he's coming down to that iconic Cops corner we've just mentioned just right now. And he's going to try to take a wide entry, swoop it in, and then don't run wide on the exit. Otherwise, you will invalidate on your lap. It is as simple as that. It is as cut and dry as that. And Luca Serafini making it look pretty easy. Now heading through Maggots and Beckett's. And out of the other end, he has improved by almost 0.2 of a second. Pretty strong lap time for Serafini so far. He'll be challenging for third place. If he's got any more time in this final sector, about 0.6 in fact, he'll be challenging the front row. It's a steep ask, but can Serafini live up to it, or is he just going to be challenging for third place on this grid? There's strong laps on the top two, and to be fair, he's not too far off. He's under 1/10 behind Daniel Riley, who is himself not going to improve upon his lap. The checkered flag is out and waved, and we shall see the final runs from all of these drivers as Daniel Riley and Cenkovan's sessions are over. That's an improvement by Kyle Stuart Woodard of 0.16 seconds in the first sector, and that could be a very promising lap and could be a challenger for the front row. This is Connor Stuart Woodard. What's he going to do as he comes up to the split time? It's a 0.2 improvement. He will be the first one to improve upon his lap if he can get it hooked up, and he is going to be challenging Brian Moore on for that 5th place, unless he can do exactly what Serafini did in that final sector and find ungodly amounts of time, but he's got to find a bit more, about 7.5 tenths to catch up to his teammate. Also, Stuart Woodard up to the line, and he's a 28.6. Now, the current pole sitter will not be improving Cenkovan with a point. Well, he's gone through with a 0.7, so it's not an improvement. And we've got Brian Moore heading through the final sector, improving by 0.6 of a second, and this could be an incredible lap that's really come out of nowhere for Brian Moore. I mean, he is looking to challenge for those top few spots on this grid, and he may well do just that as he heads out of the final corner. It's going to be a 1 minute 27.995. So a pretty solid lap there from Brian Moore to head up into 4th place, and a pretty solid qualifying session in general is what we had in store. We've got Cenkovan taking that pole position by over a second ahead of Daniel Riley in second. Then it is Luca Serafini in third, Brian Moore in fourth. Then it's the Stuart Woodards who are on the third row of the grid, that being Kyle leading Connor. And then Ethan Shackleton, who is going to struggle, I think, to try to force his way through everybody. He crashed out of the exit of Beckett's, and, well, he took no further part in the qualifying session apart from the first part of the first runs. And that is that. That is your qualifying session. The race session is just around the corner. And, well, the age-old question, the question I'll ask you every week, who's going to come out on top today?
Realistically, after what we've just seen in qualifying, there's only one man you can put your money on, and that is Andrea Chenkovan. A 26.6 is crazy. That's such a good lap, especially considering it was his second lap. Obviously, he wasn't able to improve on it on his third run, but he didn't need to. Personally, I would have stayed in the pits just because save a set of tyres. But just a crazy lap from him, and being over a second faster than anyone in qualifying is just crazy. So Andrea Chenkovan is who my money is on to dominate this race.
I was hoping you'd go for someone different, a devil's advocate. And devil's advocate is exactly what I'm going to play now. Let's have a look at this grid then. And, well, I'm going to back Luca Serafini. No real reason. But Luca Serafini to come out on top. I just think there was improvements in that final run. I say no particular reason. Then I instantly go to back it up. I just think there was enough improvements in that final run to make it look as though Serafini was going to do something special and something just to get up onto that front row of the grid. And not quite there in that final sector, but a lot of time found in that final sector. And he is looking strong heading into race day. And of course, that will mean that he will close in on his teammate McGurk and close in on Shackleton and Chenkovan in the standings. The sole Williams runner tonight, it's 1 versus 2 if we're looking just at the Constructors' Championship. For those purposes, we will head, though, in just a couple of minutes' time to the lights out. But we've got a very, very good race on our hands. I think Chenkovan is going to take some beating today. But if he does end up blasting away, we should still be in for a good battle for the likes of second and third. We've got similarly matched drivers, Riley and Serafini, within a tenth of each other. And then the three behind, so close as well. And then, of course, Ethan Shackleton, who's going to try to scythe his way through the field and get right up to the very top as the final preparations are being done now for the drivers. They're getting suited and booted for this British Grand Prix. And we should be in for a very strong race. We've got 7 drivers on this grid. We had 6 set qualifying laps. And at the moment, we've got 3 sitting on the mediums and 4 currently sitting on the soft compound tyre that you recommended earlier. But that is all, well, that will all come to fruition. It will all be decided within the next 29, I believe, laps it is around this circuit. But for now, we can just wait. We shall wait until the race gets underway. It's the final preparations for the drivers. And I was trying to get up the tyres. There we go. It's softs for Chenkovan, mediums for Riley, softs again for Serafini, and then mediums for Moore. Softs for both the Stuart Woodards, and then Ethan Shackleton going for the mediums down at the end. Do you reckon it's going to be a split between the softs to the mediums and then the mediums to the hards, or do you reckon that that Moore, Riley, and Shackleton have all gone for the mediums to softs?
I reckon it will be mediums to softs. Just because mediums go for absolutely ever here. You know, they'll do 15 laps. A race around here is, I believe, 26 laps.
Oh, it was close.
25, 26. It's 25, 26, I believe. And the mediums will probably do about 60% of that race, 60, 70%, and then you've just got the last sort of 40, 30% to do on the softs, which they will last. Softs will do about 10 laps around here, sort of 9, 10 laps. So if I was them, if I was starting on the mediums, I would go to softs at the end. Personally, I would have started on the softs, just because I feel like you'll lose so much on the undercut, because the undercut window is like 5, 6 laps, and that you're just going to lose so much time. So I probably would have started on the softs, but medium to soft could work.
I think it could, and it's one of those things that we're just going to have to see. And strategies are always, you're going to have to wait and see, but they're going to have to drive quickly to make those strategies work. And, well, this man's certainly driven so far very quickly. Not just this race, but this weekend, as Daniel Riley needs reminding that the race hasn't started yet. and he is parked right all the way back in his pit box as everybody else lines up on that grid. And we are going to go to the 5 red lights. And it's action here in Britain. Chenkovan gets off to a good start. Daniel Riley tries to slot in P2. And in the background, we've got 2 guys side by side, as that is an awful start for Connor Stewart-Wood. And he drops down to the back of the field. Ethan Shackleton alongside and ahead of Brian Moore. And he gets ahead with somehow superior grip on all of the cars behind. Brian Moore must have had a problem as well, because through goes Connor Stewart-Wood back into P6, but it is Chenkovan who leads this race, and he's already looking to try to break that DRS early on. He's got 8 tenths to Daniel Riley, he's got 9 tenths to Daniel Riley, and he might even be out of the DRS by the end of this straight. It's Copse Corner where he's going to try to confirm it, but that is a supreme start for Chenkovan, who's going to try to break away. He wants a boring race today, and at the moment he's looking as though he's setting just that up, as Luca Seracini might have been shaping up a move on Daniel Riley into Copse. Not quite, and maybe searching for a move on the exit. He attempts to, doesn't quite make it stick, and he just sits behind the kick-sauber for now. He is on the faster tyre, so he's going to try to get past soon, but how soon is soon? He's got the slipstream. He pulls to the inside line, and is he going to seal this position before the corner even comes? Yes, indeed he is, and he makes it through. 1.8 seconds, though, is the gap between Chenkovan and Luca Seracini, and Chenkovan is channeling his best Senna at Donington impression after 1.8 seconds being pulled on the first lap alone. A 31.8 from Chenkovan. Second place, Luca Seracini, for comparison, 33.6. So what an incredible first lap that is from Chenkovan. He's put the pedal to the metal. He's ready to go racing here in Britain, and everybody else at the moment trying to keep up. Luca Seracini, even though he's on the same compounded tyre, not able to do so just as well. And then Daniel Riley doing well to keep up with Luca Seracini, despite being on the inferior tyre at this point in time. The softs seem to have so much more of an advantage at this early point in the race. And, well, it's an interesting case between these drivers, and it's going to be a continually developing battle between these drivers, as Ethan Shackleton's lost that DRS to Stewart-Wood behind. Whether he's able to make it back through maggots, he's going to have to try, because otherwise that could be his battle further up the field. Completely gone for the Ferrari, as he's now 9 tenths behind, and everybody in front is going to get DRS. I think he is as well on this occasion, but it's not looking good for Shackleton, as it's certainly looking good for his teammate. It's 2.5 seconds up the field, as there could be a move from Stewart-Wood. He sends it into the side of Daniel Riley, and that is a front wing end plate off for Carl Stewart-Wood, and he's going to continue on, but he's certainly going to have a little bit less downforce, which is going to cost him time. Chenkovan 1 minute 29.9 as he crosses the line, and 2.6 seconds is what he splits. What he and the Williams splits as they head out of lap 3 of this Grand Prix. But Chenkovan in the lead of this one by an absolute country mile. Second place is held by Seracini, who's got the pace advantage at the moment over Daniel Riley, but Riley just keeping a toe in there, waiting for those softs to fall off, and then those mediums can come alive. And then just behind Stewart-Wood, who will have a pace disadvantage due to that front wing end plate missing after a generous send down the inside did not pay off, and he could actually be falling into the grasp of Ethan Shackleton behind. He was over a second behind at this point on the last lap. He's now just 4 tenths behind, and the Ferrari is going to try to make this move, I think, into the same place where Carl Stewart-Wood had tried and failed to get past Daniel Riley on that previous lap. He's going to be trying to send it, and that is the effect of having no end plate for Stewart-Wood, because Beckett's just really was a struggle for him, as Daniel Riley looking around the outside. And can he seal this move despite being on the inferior tyres? Not quite yet. Luca Seracini holds on to second, and Daniel Riley holds on to third for now. Fourth place Shackleton is now going to put the pedal to the metal, as it's another fastest lap from Chenkovan. He's really, really fast, and he's almost a second quicker than Daniel Riley over that previous lap. And he is now 4 seconds ahead of Luca Seracini. And what an incredible driver we have on our hands in Andrea Chenkovan. To be 4 seconds ahead on lap 4 is no mean feat. And you got to doff your cap to him. That is an incredible drive so far. It could all be cost, though, with that strategy as Daniel Riley sends it to the inside line of Seracini. And the grip could have already switched on lap 4 of this Grand Prix to Daniel Riley, to the medium runners. And Luca Seracini could have cooked those soft compound tyres early on. But as it stands at the moment, the medium compound runner is ahead. Seracini looking maybe for a move into Copse, maybe not, backing out of it. And Ethan Shackleton staying within range. He is 8 tenths behind now. But Kyle Stewart-Woodard with that damage, as that is very wide from Daniel Riley into Maggots. And this corner continues to be a huge disadvantage for a lot of these drivers. It's a huge just issue for a lot of them. And we've seen Shackleton retire in qualifying. We've seen Daniel Riley have issues there. And we've just seen it's not a very easy segment of corners to head through. And I believe it was Daniel Riley in qualifying invalidating there. So really, really difficult to go through Maggots and Beckett's at the moment for these drivers. We've got Daniel Riley just ahead of Shackleton, Ethan Shackleton, coming through lap number 5. He'll have DRS on him down the back straight. We've got 2 DRS zones, neither of which are the main straight. And Shackleton's going to try to take advantage of this one as they head under the bridge now, closing that gap just under 2 tenths of a second. But staying in behind Daniel Riley, staying within range of Luca Seracini ahead. And at the moment, it's looking all right for these drivers continuing to be in this battle as, well, Chenkovan almost 6 seconds up at the top of this field. But these three so close together. They're going to continue to go so close together, despite Ethan Shackleton running wide and maybe closing in on, well, maybe losing that gap to Riley. Riley maybe closing in on Luca Seracini. The DRS is open for both of the drivers behind. Shackleton pulls to the inside line. He gets the momentum out of Beckett, but can't quite make that move as Riley sweeps around the outside of Seracini. Shackleton looks to the inside of Seracini as they head into the final braking zone of the lap. Can he seal the position? The answer is no. It's a move up ahead for Seracini, staying in P3, and, well, he's lucked out on this occasion. It's the 2 Stewart-Woodards in 5th and 6th, and the one in 6th is, well, he looked to have the pace earlier on, did Kyle, but the pace in this middle part of this stint has just completely gone away, thanks to that send that he tried to make with those, well, losing an end plate. And you can see the damage to that end plate there. And now he has Brian Moore right on his rear and ready to pounce. But Chenkovan, incredible pace so far this race. I think it's fair to be said. And he's going to continue to try to show this pace throughout the rest of the race. 5.2 seconds is what he's holding to Daniel Riley. I think, to be fair, at this point, he just looks like he's conserving. He's done all the pushing that he needs to do, and he's just going to sit back in because it was up to 6 seconds on that previous lap. Maybe he's saving a little bit of fuel, or maybe he made a mistake on that previous lap. Either way, he's 4 tenths down on this one as the first penalty is picked up by Connor Stewart-Woodard. The gap between Daniel Riley and Chenkovan is now apparently still 5.2 seconds as the gap between Shackleton, Seracini and Riley decreases. It's a send to the inside for Seracini and Shackleton, who are going to continue to fight. Shackleton looking right ahead at Daniel Riley. Little touch of a look up for the Ferrari, and he will stay in behind the Williams, looking to pounce upon any mistake made. And, well, heading into turn number 1, there will be no such mistake, but they're so close together, and this battle will wage on throughout this one as we are over a quarter of the way through this race now. Time flies when you're having fun, eh? And, well, now the gap is updated finally between Chenkovan and Riley. Over 8 seconds. So clearly it was a mistake, and it was a mistake that was very easily rectified. Shackleton moves up into P2. And currently it's a 1-2-4 Ferrari, a perfect weekend so far with a fastest lap for Chenkovan. And despite Shackleton crashing out in qualifying, he's managed to sort himself out and get his way back up into P2. And with the pace that he's been showing so far this race, I'm expecting him to seal this one. DRS, though, for Riley and Seracini is going to make that job just that little bit more difficult. And if he's able to hold on to it down this straight, I think he might be in the clear and dry. He's 3/10 ahead of Riley. Seracini was looking to pressure Riley, but ran wide. That's a personal best in the second sector for Shackleton as he tries to make his way past, as that's Brian Moore slamming into the wall in the background. And the kick sour, but with half a front wing, that is surely his competitive race over, as he'll have to come into the pits at the end of this lap. I believe he went on to the softs. No, he didn't. He went on to the mediums. Apologies there, but he went on to the mediums, which means that he might be switching on to the hards in this session, as that is Stuart Woodard with another 3-second time penalty. Not been his day so far, but certainly not been Moore's day. Daniel Riley looking to pressure Shackleton around the outside, possibly a switch back, but just tapping the rear of Shackleton, maybe expecting to be a little bit quicker through the segment, trying to hurry him through. They're both on the mediums now, and I think they could break away from Seracini as Seracini loses that momentum and loses ultimately that grip that he could possibly have. But it's just going to continue like this as, apologies, I've only just seen the ping. You've got something to say on the Kyle and Daniel Riley incident?
Yeah, I just went back and watched it. And to me, it literally looks as simple as Kyle just completely outbrakes himself. Because it's not, looking at it, it wasn't so much the send. He was perfectly alongside in a reasonable fashion. It literally just looks like he brakes and then forgets to turn, because I was watching it back. He was on the inside. Usually you brake a little bit harder to go tighter at this corner here towards Vale, but he didn't. He just kind of went straight on. I don't think Daniel Riley was expecting that. I think there could have potentially been a misunderstanding. Maybe Daniel Riley was expecting Kyle to go tighter and Kyle was expecting Daniel Riley to go wider. I'm not too sure, but on that camera, it literally just looks like Kyle outbrakes himself in some form.
Yeah, and just slams into the side unintentionally. Of course it's unintentional. You don't want to slam into the side of anybody when you're racing, but it wasn't a good look. I think that's fair to say. And, well, for him, he's going to now have to build his race back up. He's 4.2 seconds behind Seracini. Luckily as well that it didn't spoil any of Daniel Riley's party, and he continues to battle for P2 despite the fact that contact was made earlier on. And, well, Stuart Woodard now behind his teammate, just about dropping out of that DRS. And not what he would have wanted out of this race so far. I think it's fair to be said, especially because he seemed to have some pretty decent pace, did Stuart Woodard. But alas, just one little mistake cost you so much time. And that battle for P3 turned into the battle for P6. And that is a battle at the moment that he's losing to his teammate. And, well, that's not what you want to do. Daniel Riley trying to close in on Shackleton. On lap 9 of this Grand Prix, he's going to be 2/10 back as they head through the final sector. I think now is going to be when they start to think about hitting those soft runners. Of course, these two both running on the medium compound of tyre, but Chenkovan, for example, in this race lead on those softs, and almost as if I've commanded him to, almost as if it's scripted. In comes Luca Seracini into the pit lane, one of the longest pit lanes on the Formula 1 calendar, and he will come out in 6th place. Possibly not 7th, because Brian Moore had that damage that he had to come in and repair, but 6th place for the number 99 Williams, and he will come out of those pits indeed in 6th place. It's an agonising wait, especially if you have to be fighting with people. But at the moment, Seracini, he'd just fallen off the back of Riley and Shackleton. He just started to struggle, and, well, it was almost perfect timing for him to come into the pits and try to rebuild from the very start, from the very beginning. And that is exactly what he's going to try to do, as he is now by himself, essentially, in this race. and he is now going to try to build his way back forward and try to make the undercut, what looks to be quite an aggressive undercut, work. It's now they head on to lap 10 of this Grand Prix. We're over a third of the way through the Grand Prix now, and well, the sole Williams in this race is sitting back in P6, as that's a 3-second time penalty for Daniel Riley. That could be so crucial as we head towards the end of this race. That could be so crucial for him, as well, that's not what he would have wanted to see in any way, shape or form, and that could possibly, don't know what I'm saying, that could possibly cost him towards the end of this race, considering how close he and Shackleton were together, considering the fact that Seracini as well was staying within range, not quite close enough, but he was within 3 seconds before he came into the pits, I believe, and he's going to continue to try to close that gap in, and well, at the moment, it's looking all right for him, as well, he's 23.1 seconds off of the McLarens ahead. I don't know if you've got any information on how long a pit stop would take, do you?
Britain is a longer pit stop. I believe it is about 27 seconds, I want to say, because it's a very, very long entrance before you even get to the pit lane itself. So I'm pretty sure it's about 27 seconds. I will Google it and I will come back to you.
Always good, our data analyst there, Owen. Just keeping us up to date with all the information, and all the information that I demand, he shall be there at my mercy. And, well, that's the information that I can bring to you. Chenkovan has sent it into the pits, so it's another Ferrari in the lead of the race. It is not Chenkovan this time. It will be Shackleton. In comes Daniel Riley as well, possibly trying to match Chenkovan's strategy, or possibly going in for the hard compounded tyre for the Kick Sauber. Interesting decision, I think that is, at this point in time. Maybe he has really, really cooked those mediums. Is he coming in for a front wing change? No, it is simply a switch onto the hard compounded tyre. But he is joined in the pit lane by another soft runner who's switching onto those mediums. So Riley going long in this stint, as finally that's that front wing change that was so sorely needed by Kyle Stewart-Wood, and he's going to come out of the pits behind Lucas Seracini, who is now, well, he's 22.6 seconds off of the cars ahead as he heads out of the pit lane, or out past the pit lane even. And the gap now between himself and Daniel Riley, 8 seconds between 4th and 5th. And I think you might be right on that assumption, to be fair. About 24 seconds sounds about right, considering that Seracini is 7.5 seconds off of Daniel Riley. Riley having just come out of the pits, and Seracini having just had a couple of laps. We're looking up at the top, though, and Chenkovan, who's on those mediums now, on those fresh medium compound tyres, and he's going to try to catch up and overtake Krypton World, a.k.a. Connor Stewart-Woodard, and then the big one, Shackleton, up in the lead of this race. Shackleton continues on this lap, and he continues onto lap number 12 of this Grand Prix. Stewart-Woodard, however, will dive into the pits, and he has spent half the race on that set of soft compound tyres, so it is a stint of half and half. It is going from the softs to the mediums, and Chenkovan will pass to P2. The Ferraris going for different strategies here. Shackleton going for the overcut here today, and he's going to try and make it work against Daniel Riley as Seracini in P5. Daniel Riley went for an interesting strategy in the end, and well, we've done some googling, probably some ChatGPTing as well, and our pit lane reporter can tell us how long the pit lane is.
I was pretty much correct. A pit time around Britain is 29 seconds. I had said 28, so I wasn't that far off. How I found out was I went on to one of Jarno Opmeer's streams and looked at the pit time from when he pit in a PSGL race a few months ago, and he came out on 29.8, I believe it was. So, pretty much correct to what I said. So yeah, that's roughly the time you lose in Britain. It's a much longer pit lane. You know, The shortest pit lane in Formula One, I believe, is Austria, and that's about 18 seconds. And the average is about 21, 22. So a much longer pit lane at Britain for sure.
18 seconds, 24 seconds. What's the difference? Well, 6 seconds, which is a lot of time in Formula One. And, well, at the moment, Chenkovan he's doing less than 6 seconds, but that pace over the rest of the field is aggressive and it is impressive. 8 tenths is what he's improved by on that last lap, a fastest to go to a 29.0 and pretty much seal that extra point for himself today. As well, thank you, Owen, for the information. I'll send you back with your tape measure down the Silverstone pit lane, and I'll try and get you to measure something else in a minute. That's how we keep him. That's how we keep him entertained, folks. Anyway, back to the action and back to the back of the field. It is Brian Moore right on the rear of Stuart Woodard, trying to pressure him, but from the looks of things, it was in vain, as he was under a tenth behind into the final corner. He's already almost out of that DRS range, and the kick Sauber just not quite having the pace of the newly suited and booted Stuart Woodard, I think it's fair to say, because with a brand new front wing, he is able to try to push forward and try to go up to where he rightfully belongs based on his pace so far in this race. But just that one send on Daniel Riley has dropped him all the way down from the battle for P3 to the battle for P6. The battle for P3, by the way, that has extinguished. It's due to the fact that Shackleton is going so long on these mediums, which only suggests that he's going to try and do a very, very short soft stint right at the end of this race. And, well, to be fair to him, those softs did look very, very quick over the first couple of laps, but then they dropped off significantly. So it is going to be a gamble to go for that long stint. And Daniel Riley, his rival in that battle, playing it safe and going for the mediums to the hards option. Of course, starting on the mediums gave you the option of both, and he opted to take the hards on lap 13 or 14, I believe it was, of the race. But we continue on now, and now on lap 15 of this race. Surely, I mean, I think it was lap 13. I'll have a look. It was lap 12. So I'm wrong on that one. It was lap 12, or maybe it was lap 13. One of the two. Either way, he came into the pits and switched onto the hards instead of the tyres that we expected him to go onto, which was the medium, or sorry, the soft compound tyre from the medium in the lap 12 of 26 with 14 laps to go, though the medium was probably the right tyre to go onto. And, well, we'll see if somebody comes off of the medium compound tyre on lap 15 of this Grand Prix. Is Shackleton finally going to dive into the pits? Yes, he is. Right, game on for Daniel Riley. How fast can he shoot up the field? We know that Chenkovan's going to take the lead of the race. We know that Daniel Riley's probably going to take P2. It's actually going to be very tight on the pit exit, as there was a gap of exactly 24 seconds. And if what you're saying is right, Owen, it is 24 seconds long in that pit lane. And that means that he will come out exactly level with Daniel Riley. We shall see as Riley now heading out of the final braking zone and out of the final corner to come down the main straight for the 16th time. Where is he in relation to Shackleton as he heads around the outside of turn number 1? And he is going to be ahead, only just Shackleton. Of course, he had that little pit stop, which cost him a little bit of time, and now he's 2 seconds back. Chenkovan, though, 15.5 seconds ahead in the lead of this one. And, well, pretty comprehensive victory, very well-earned victory for Chenkovan, who is going to extend his championship lead. And we need McGurk to come back next week, because nobody else is really able to hold a candle to Chenkovan at the moment. Although, that may be me attempting to do the commentator's curse, the classic commentator's curse on Chenkovan, and hope that he crashes out. Somebody else takes a race victory, and then we can all close up the championship standing. But that may be my underdog bias coming into effect, and that is me not quite recognising how difficult it is for Daniel Riley or for Chenkovan to be up there, for Daniel Riley to catch up. Chenkovan just running an almost perfect race at the moment, if not perfect. We haven't seen enough of him because he's been 15 seconds off into the distance. He's absolutely smoked everybody in the first over half of this race now. And the Ferrari is going to go on to likely take this victory. He can ease it home now, but I'm sure he will not be doing that. That is not in Cenkovan's blood. The Serbian is going to the Croatian is going to push more forward, as that might cause me some issues later on. I hope he doesn't watch that particular part of the stream back. But Cenkovan 16.4 seconds ahead at the moment, and Shackleton just dropping out of the DRS on the kick Sauber. So not quite the battle that we were hoping for at the moment, but Shackleton is now going to work his way into that DRS. And, well, the pace that he's showing is superior to Daniel Riley at the moment. I said he dropped out of it because he wasn't quite close enough for my liking. He has completely rectified that, and he's gone 4/10 quicker in that sector. So the softs really working at the moment for the Ferrari, and he's going to try to close in, use that DRS, and he's now just 5/10 behind. He'll feel as though Riley's holding out through Maggots and Beckett with the grip that he's got on those softs. But it's unintentional, I promise. And Shackleton on the exit will try to make that move back and try to get into that DRS. He won't even need it. Who needs DRS anyway if you've got such superior grip? And he makes his way through. We'll try to break that DRS now before Riley's tyres become the tyres. To be honest, Cenkovan goes even faster. He keeps breaking the limits of what is possible. And that lap wouldn't have looked out of place in qualifying. That is the pace that he has at the moment. And it is absolutely supreme. Another 3 second, by the way, coming out this time for Lucas Erracini, as it's a purple final sector for Shackleton. But, I mean, he's 17.6 seconds off Cenkovan, so it's too little too late. With 8 laps left to go in this Grand Prix, very much too little too late for Shackleton to close back in. But Daniel Riley trying to keep within touch. I am wondering, though, at what point will the softs go off, or at what point should the softs go off, and at what point do the hards really activate?
The hards probably will come into it quite late, just because soft's tyre wear around here is actually not all that awful, especially if you're going medium soft, and you're going to be able to make those soft tyres last to the end of the race quite comprehensively. Probably on about, I reckon about 54-55% at the end of the race, so definitely not in puncture range at all. If you're on the mediums, the crossover is probably much later than it is in the first stint, just because you have extra laps on the medium tyres compared to the softs. So I reckon it'd probably be quite late at like lap 23, 24. So not really early enough to take any effect in the race. And hards probably won't be better at all, just because of they're such a hard compound around this circuit, and tyre wear being low on the softs. I just don't think they will be quicker at all.
Shackleton going to the fastest lap of the Grand Prix as he breaks away from Daniel Riley. And, well, even if the hards are quicker at the end of this race, Shackleton is now building up a buffer. Almost 3 seconds, and it probably will be 3 seconds as he heads out of this sector, and it's going to be an easy 1-2, I think, for Ferrari from this point in time. Stuart Woodard right on the back of Seracini for the battle for P4, and he's going to try to take that DRS down this next straight. And, well, whether he's able to make this move is another question, but he's certainly going to try to shape this up. He's going to pull to the inside line of Seracini, but just backing out of it, Seracini on the hards. And Stuart Woodard, he's on the soft, the medium compound tyre even. God, that's a throwback, calling that a soft compound tyre. Those yellow walled, those yellow walled tyres back in there used to be the soft compounded tyre. But of course, that was back in the times where we had hyper soft, super soft, soft, medium, hard, super hard. What a range of tyres we had, and then they made it boring, and it was C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, which of course they don't bring all of them to every race weekend. They should bring it back, because I'm bored of medium hard strategies, and here we've got medium soft strategies coming into play, and it's an interesting juxtaposition, the medium soft strategies, the soft medium strategies, and of course Seracini being on the hards. I like a little strategic battle. And that's really been lost in the real-life Formula 1 over the last few years. We have had a couple of glimpses, but nothing near the level of around 2017. But there was so much option, so much variation, in those tyres, and it really provided interesting racing. And well, here we have a little battle between two different tyre compounds. So we get a little taste of it again as Saraceni on very old now hard compound tyres. They've done 10 laps. They've done half of the race that's been completed so far. And the McLaren 7-lap old medium tyres. He's going to try and pull it to the outside, maybe switching to the inside. No, 2/10 slower than his previous best. And, well, that shows that he's got pace, but that also shows that Saraceni, not a mug on those hard compounder tyres. He's not going that slowly in comparison. At the moment, I'm sure he's fine to just sit exactly where he is. But Connor Stewart-Woodard just trying to pressure. At the moment, I don't think this is the right thing to do, you know. I think that the mediums won't have that much of a disadvantage towards the end of the race. And he can just stay in and camp for that DRS at the end of the race, unless, of course, penalties are applied. And, well, penalties, 9 seconds for Stewart-Woodard. That explains it, with just 6 seconds for Luca Saraceni. But maybe looking to the inside line. Nope, tucking back in, staying in behind. I talked about the crossover between the softs and the hards. What about the crossover between the mediums and the hards? Of course, Saraceni is about to come through on 12 laps, I believe, if not 11, on those hard compounded tyres. And the McLaren's coming through on 8 or 9. So is there a crossover period for these two?
There will be a crossover probably in the next few laps, but it won't be a strong enough crossover, I suppose, is the best way to put it, to affect the race particularly. Again, tyre wear on the mediums is low. Tyre wear around Britain, for some reason, in this game is just generally surprisingly low. But I don't think it will affect the race just because of the power of DRS. You know, even if Connor Stewart-Woodard's medium tyres were to go off, he'd still be able to keep in DRS just because DRS is that powerful. You know, you got two really, really powerful DRS zones, especially the second one. So I don't think it will have a major impact on the race.
And, well, all I'll say is bring on F125 and bring on fairer battles with that DRS. But, of course, you mentioned it is very strong around Silverstone, not just in the game, but also in real life as well. So I guess it's vaguely realistic. And, well, he's 6 tenths behind here. We'll see quite how powerful it is as he closes in. It's 5 tenths, 4, 3. He's actually pulled out of the slipstream there, and he's gone to, well, he's over halved that gap between the two. So impressive stuff for that DRS. And I think, yeah, sitting behind is just the right plan. But 3 seconds extra worth of penalties, and he is going to be raring to try to get through as he heads on to lap 22 of this Grand Prix. He's just going to be desperate to get past, I think, to try and build that 3-second gap. Although, if he feels as though he can get one of those penalties removed, he's going to be very, very careful. If he feels as though he can get one for Saraceni, he's also going to be very careful, because what if he gets one of his own? We shall see. It will all become information that is available towards the end of this race. As we had Brian Moore getting close once again to Kyle Stewart-Woodard, but then just making a mistake to drop out of it. And, well, if he sits in P7 for this entire race, then he can only really blame those mistakes that he made at those crucial moments that meant that he wasn't able to get past Kyle Stewart-Woodard, who in himself has been very quick so far this race, just hasn't had the luck on his side. And, well, forgetting to turn, that's a pretty rookie error for Kyle Stewart-Woodard. All things considered, we're on to lap 23 of this race as Chenkovan crosses the line. That's another 3 seconds for Saraceni. Game's back on for Connor Stewart-Woodard, who now no longer needs to get past. He now can just sit in behind, but of course he's not going to do that. He wants to take this position on track, and he tucks to the inside. But Saraceni pulling around just holds on to it. By the way, that's not me saying that that's not me saying that he doesn't want to take that position because of the fact that Saraceni has 9 seconds, because don't forget, he's also got 9 seconds. But it's just a case of waiting towards the end of the race. Whenever he feels is the right time to strike, that is when he's going to attempt to strike. As that's, never mind, all of that talk for another 3 seconds to head his way. And, well, unfortunate for him, because at the moment where he would have gotten really excited, he's just sort of thrown it a little bit away again. 3 seconds is what he's going to have to gain again, or he's going to have to put Cerasini under pressure. A personal best first sector, though, for Connor Stewart-Woodard. That's going to help in your attempts to gain and, well, pass Luca Cerasini in towards the end of this one. As well, that's Cerasini on the outside. We've seen this from Connor Stewart-Woodard quite a few times. Just taking that inside line into Cops before tucking back into the slipstream. It's a very interesting strategic decision. Just to maybe make Cerasini think that he's closer than he really is. And that he's making a move more than he really is. But it doesn't seem to have worked at the moment. And slower second sector than what he would be used to by half a second is what his second sector was down by. So it's 0.6 total in that second sector on his personal best. Not what he would have wanted to see. At 24 of 26 then. And this battle will continue to wage on until the very end. But I think Cerasini, if he can keep it clean, he's got this as they head towards the end of this race now. But Chenkovan has been so dominant. And he's got that race lead. Just a reminder then of what this will do to the championship standings. With, of course, McGurk not racing tonight. That means Chenkovan will extend his lead at the top of the championship. It was going to be 8 points. It is now going to stretch all the way to 34, and that is a huge advantage as we're watching now. To the inside goes Connor Stewart-Woodard, but not quite making that move stick. Scaring Cerasini, though, reminding him that he is indeed there. And this battle will continue on to the end as Stewart-Woodard is not comfortable with just sitting in behind. And, well, into Cop's corner, could he make a move? Nope, sitting behind. Not a smart place to make a move. And he recognises that, staying in the slipstream as they head through Maggots and Beckett's. Maggots and Beckett's, which just claimed a couple of victims today penalty-wise, and he'll be hoping that Luca Cerasini extends track limits here, and Cerasini will be hoping the very opposite. He's got a buffer of about 3.6 seconds because, of course, Cerasini is 6 seconds ahead of Connor at the moment. He's got a buffer of 3.6 seconds until he has to worry about the McLaren behind. Penultimate lap of this race. We will continue on, and it is Chenkovan who has won this race by an absolute canter. However, Shackleton, P2, pretty strong pace from him, and I think you'll be impressed with that one. Of course, starting from the back of the grid is not ideal. Had he been up the top of the grid, I think he would have given his teammate a decent fight, but as it stands, he is sitting in P2, a very comfortable P2. Those of you who are avid Joseph Black fans, not that I'd expect you to be yet, join the hype train. As that's another 3 seconds for Luca Cerasini, and now the game is back on for Connor Stewart-Woodard. But as I was saying, we call it the John Dalton zone, because John Dalton is a man who likes to be miles behind somebody and also miles ahead of somebody. And that is where Shackleton and Daniel Riley currently sit in P2 and P3. By the way, that doesn't count for P1. You cannot be in the John Dalton zone in P1 because then you are not miles behind somebody. But Chenkovan, heading on to the final lap of this Grand Prix, is 15 seconds ahead of Shackleton, 15.9 even, if you're going to pick cherries. And Daniel Riley behind, 11.3 seconds. And then Riley, 10.4 seconds ahead of Lucas Cerasini in 4th place. So big gaps, but this is a very small one. And they both have the same amount of penalties. Just to confirm, they do. Yep, they both got 12 seconds worth of penalties. Actually, this battle isn't even going to be for P4. This battle is for P5. Because somehow Kyle Stewart-Woodard is going to blag a P4 here as we head on to the final lap of this Grand Prix. Unless he makes a mistake, he is going to blag a P4 out of absolutely nowhere because of Cerasini and Connor Stewart-Woodard just exceeding the track limits a couple too many times, and 12 seconds worth of penalties has really cost their day. 9 would have been fine, but 1 too many penalties, and that has really cost them one of the last 2 DRS zones on this circuit, and one of the last 2 real opportunities for Connor Stewart-Woodard to make inroads. He sits behind Luca Cerasini, not making the inroads that he would have wanted to make. That has been saved for the final straight on this circuit, or it could be saved for Cop's corner if he gets close enough. Not quite going to be close enough, but a man heading around the final corner now. It's going to be Andrea Chenkovan with one of the most dominant victories this league has ever seen. And Schenkovan winning by 15.4 seconds ahead of his teammate. That being Ethan Shackleton, who will come across the line in P2. Coming around the final corner now, Daniel Riley will be in P3, but we'll switch to the battle for P4, which is provisionally P4, will be P5. Down the inside goes Connor Stewart-Woodard. Ascend around the outside from Seracini, clings on to P4, and that is the last overtaking opportunity. So it's Schenkovan to Shackleton to Riley, and it will be on track at least to Seracini. A couple of more laps, they would have built up the gap enough to be ahead of Carl Stewart-Woodard. As it is, they pick up those huge time penalties, and Carl Stewart-Woodard is going to come across the line in 6th place and then go, oh, I'm up in 4th now. It's a pretty good race, all things considered, despite the fact that he was going to battle for the P3, P4 positions. He ended up taking P4 anyway, so he won't be too disappointed in the end with the end result, even if he was disappointed with that process. But the end of the race then, Shackleton deserved driver of the day, and, well, Schenkovan, he could be a pretty strong contender as well. Who's your driver of the day, though, Owen?
Driver of the day for me, I think I can't pick between the two Ferrari boys. You know, both of them had fantastic races for different reasons. You know, Andrea Schenkovan's was fantastic just because dominated from start to finish. That is the definition of a lights to flag victory. You know, stayed in first pretty much the entire time, only lost it under the pit stop phase, controlled it brilliantly, and just never looked like he could be beat today. And then Ethan Shackleton, my reason for having him as driver of the day, he carved his way back through the pack in the first stint after a tricky qualifying, of course, crashing out just after Beckett's. So did well to recover up to P2 and take the fastest lap as well. So those two are my drivers of the day. I can't pick between the two, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, they're the pretty obvious contenders. There's not really anybody else, as this is the confirmation on the final screen. We've got Schenkovan, the Croat, taking the victory with Ethan Shackleton, not Jamie, Ethan Shackleton, coming home in P2. Then it's Daniel Riley, 3rd, and then a very, very lucky for Kyle Stewart-Woodard to jump up to P4. He certainly wouldn't have done that had Seracini, who was in P5, and his namesake Connor, not quite sure of the relation, but Connor in P6 was
Connor and
track
Carla
P5.
brothers.
They're brothers, wonderful. That helps then. So they are brothers, and well, if his brother and Seracini hadn't fought so hard, then he wouldn't have dropped off. And then the final position going to Brian Moore, who I believe he was the one who said that he didn't like that circuit particularly well, but at the end of the day, it is what it is, and you have to cope with those sorts of things. Speaking of, should we bring Brian in for an interview? Hello, can you hear us?
Yep. Hold up, I need to turn my music off.
No worries. I mean, music can help you lock in, can't it? But talk me through your race today. I mean, a pretty lonely one, all things considered. But
yeah, no. I had a really bad start. Went down to last, so that set the precedent for the rest of the race, to be honest. Then lap 7, I had a massive snap coming out of Maggots and Beckett's.
Yeah, Maggots and Beckett taking a lot of drivers today. Was that the only moment you had of Maggots and Beckett?
No, it was not. The second moment was more of just stupidity from me. I opened my DRS when I was still turning, and that just caused me to lose the rear of the car.
Yeah, one of those mistakes that's so very easily done. But I mean, we saw you get quite close to Kyle on a number of occasions, and then seemed to fall off. Did you just was that a visual glitch, or did you actually get close? And if you did, what on earth happened?
No, I was getting close. I just felt I wasn't close enough to make the move, and I didn't want to cause any incidents on my third race, so just taking it easy.
That's fair enough. Owen, have you got anything?
Yeah, I've just got one. How much do you think that snap of oversteer costed you? And do you think how much higher do you think you could have finished up the order had you have not had to go in early for the hards and change your wing?
Um, I feel like if I could have got past the McLarens, I had the. It's hard to say, but I feel like I could have caught up to the group ahead with my teammate Daniel and the Williams. I felt like I could have caught them, but it was just not my race today.
Yeah, unfortunate, but well done for racing. Well done for making it to the end. And when
Thank
it's
you.
all said and done, you did pick up some points. So it's not all doom and gloom.
True.
But yes, thank you very much for racing, and thank you for joining us today. The next driver that I think we're going to pull in is well, we've got a choice, but I think we're going to go in ascending order. I think we're going to go for well, actually, let's not. Let's go differently. Should we bring in who should we bring in? Let's have a look. We've got an option here. We've got Daniel Riley, I reckon.
Go on then.
I do want to,
Hello. We've interrupted your
here we are.
conversation. What was
Yeah,
that?
Sorry about that. Oh, we were just going over. We had a bit of contact at the start, and we are just going over about it. So,
Who did? You and who?
me and Kyle at the start, we had a bit of contact, and he actually had front wing damage. So, yeah, we were just having a bit of chat about. I do have to have a look at it at my stream on the end, but
And what are your thoughts on this, Kyle?
I'm sure we're talking about the incident.
Of course.
Of course. Like I just said to Dan in the waiting room, like I need to watch it back because, like in the moment, I believe I was entitled to racing room. But it's hard to say. Sometimes you watch it back and you realise you've gone wider than you thought you had, or there's other factors. Like in my head now, I feel like he turned in on me, but I'm not going to do it. Make any decisions till I've actually watched it again on my onboard.
Fair enough. I will pull you back in for a second, but I just fancied to see a little.
We're all
bit
very
of
respectful in APC. We don't,
course.
yeah. But yeah.
Unfortunately so, but yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh, I pulled the wrong person out of the box. There we go. Right. Anyway, back to you, Daniel. We'll go back to. Of course, that happened.
hello.
That happened at the race start. Talk me through the rest of the race for yourself.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you heard, but I almost didn't actually race because on the formation lap, my steering wheel wasn't working. I'll have to check my stream, but I was literally panicking, literally on the formation lap. I'm literally like seeing my car go through cops, and I'm like, my steering wheel isn't working. Do I have to like plug in my Xbox controller? Like, what do I have to do? But I ended up getting it working. Then I had a bad start. Everyone was passing me. I had the contact with Kyle, which I'll have to see again. But I think it was a good race. Obviously, first podium, in the APC league. So it's something not to be disappointed about. I think, the strategy I went with obviously wasn't optimal, but I didn't really know that. So there wasn't really much I could do about it. But, P3 is still pretty good. So I'll have to take that. And we go next week, really.
Yeah, speaking of that strategy, I mean, it was one of those. I thought that was going to be the one that everyone went on. In fairness, but it was a very interesting strategy in the end to go from the mediums to the hards. Was there any consideration you would stretch the stint onto softs, or was it just mediums, hards to the end? Simple as.
I don't know. I think I was like planning to do the opposite to Shackleton because I was racing him, and I just saw him every lap. He was just staying out when I pitted. So I was like, this is going to be close. But when he went those softs, he was absolutely rapid. So I just realized too late, and there wasn't really much I could do about it. So it is what it is. And to be fair, I did have a 3-second time penalty for cutting corners. So even if I did go on the softs, I doubt I would have beat him. To be fair, so it is what it is at the end of the day. So
yeah, and I mean P3 is not the end. Not a bad end result. All things considered. Have we got anything, Owen?
Yeah, just one. A handy day at the office for Sauber in the constructors, considering there was only one Williams present, and also sort of, since neither of you are in the championship fight, it's the constructors, both you and Brian's main focus for this season.
I mean, I don't think we're going to do well, if I am going to be honest. I did miss the race in Saudi, which was unfortunate. So it would be hard against the McLarens because, you know, I think they turn up every race. So it's just whether, you know, if we consistently turn up to every race. I feel like we do have a pace to beat them on paper. But I do think that P3 in the Constructors' Championship is going to go, you know, down to Abu Dhabi, in my opinion. But, you know, we'll have to wait and see. If we keep on doing races like this, I'm not sure if we did outscore McLaren, but, you know, we did have a good race. So, yeah, we'll have to look forward to Spa.
I was trying to do the maths off the top of my head. I can't quite do that right now.
You
But
outscored them by a point. You outscored them by a
Aha.
point.
Yeah, so keep on doing that. We'll beat them at Abu Dhabi. Yeah.
and that's why you muted. You were furiously getting your calculator. Whoa, that's not English. Calculator out.
It wasn't that. It's not. To be fair, it's not too hard maths. They finished
All right.
P4 and P6. That's 12 plus 8 is 20, and then 15 plus 6 is 21.
Well, there you go. There you go. So decent weekend all around for you, and well done. I'm going to let you go now, but cheers for tonight.
That's all right. Cheers. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, Daniel.
Right, and then well, we've got a couple of interviews to go. Of course, we love them. We've got. We'll go for. Should we go for Carl next? I reckon we'll go for Carl. We'll go.
Hello again,
Back to the man I rudely chucked out of the box earlier.
Oh well, thanks for having me back.
Of course. Just talk me through your race. How do you think it went?
I mean, it started off pretty well. I was quite happy. Don't get me wrong, quali I was a bit disappointed. I had P3 pace after Shaq crashed. I think it was like 4 attempts, and then I was on a lap where I was up, crashed out, and then ended up losing out as well to Jeddah. So I ended up further back than the pace I had. And then in the race I was running with the pack, obviously, apart from Chenky, obviously went and did his own thing, but I was running with the pack until the wing damage with Dan. So after that I just couldn't make right turns, and as you see, it's quite a lot of right turns. So let my brother pass, and I was quite fortunate to be able to stay in his DRS. So I just did a lot of charging, and then I just pitted a little bit earlier than I wanted to. My softs were so good still. I could have gone on for another 10 laps, but I needed to change that wing. And then obviously I came up with Jedi, which wasn't ideal, so I couldn't drop him. He was very consistent, but once I managed to drop him, I just focused ahead on staying within the penalty windows. I only got one warning today, so that's basically what got me this position today.
And yeah, I mentioned it on stream. I said it wasn't necessarily a lucky podium or a lucky fourth place, but it was a lucky fourth place. And it was. I mean, of course, that contact not ideal. Because it did lose that front wing at the beginning. It didn't look as though you had that much of a deficit, but then it just became more and more obvious. Did you feel on that second stint that had you not had that contact, you had the pace to do a lot more than fourth place?
Yeah, it's difficult. Obviously, I was out of DRS for the second stint. I never had DRS at all because obviously I had to change the wing. So I struggled to catch up, but I was consistent with the cars ahead. And if I was stayed with that pack and I had the DRS, for my second stint, I feel like P4 minimum. So I'm quite glad I ended up here. But P3 was potentially on the cards. I was staying with Dan quite early on, obviously before that happened. So yeah, P3 could have been possible, but I feel like P4 was the minimum target. And as you say, kind of lucky to get there, but also not getting penalties when everyone else was getting penalties around me. Yeah, it was obviously part of that. So partly down to me, but yeah, I needed that towards the end. I don't know if you noticed when I was on that stint, I was 8.7 seconds behind Demon, who had 9 seconds worth of penalties, and I made a mistake in Maggots and Beckett's, which put me outside of that window. So I was lucky that he got the extra penalty. And I think thanks to my teammate hassled him a bit, which kind of pushed him into that mistake. So I got to buy him a beer for that as well.
Yeah, and to be fair, I did see the gap grow. I thought it was due to the DRS, but I found out not only your teammate, your brother today. I knew it was some sort of relation, but You learn
Well, I
something
mean,
new every day.
our surnames are very very unique, so I'm surprised you haven't noticed that.
I knew it was some sort of relation, but there you go.
Oh, fair. Yeah.
Owen, have you got anything?
No, you literally covered everything I was going to ask, so nothing from me today.
Fair enough. All good. Well, we'll let you go. Then I'm sure you'll jump in post stream. But for now, well done on your P4, regardless of how lucky it was or anything like that. You ended up taking it, so well done.
I did. Thanks very much.
And now the last interview. We're not going to get one from Chenkovan tonight. Instead, I mean, we can go one worse, as it were, or better. Two better than Kyle, one better than Daniel. This is second place, Ethan, not Jamie, Ethan Shackleton. Hello, Ethan. Can you hear us?
Oh, I can now. Thank you.
Wonderful. Just talk us through that race.
Okay, I messed up my quali first of all. I spun on my first lap, so I didn't get any bankering or anything. That was quite stupid. I probably should have done a safe banker and then started pushing. Yeah, that put me on the back foot because I had to fight through traffic. Ultimately, I was quite happy though because I got through it very quickly and had a really comfortable second stint.
Yeah, and to be fair, it did look as though you had that pace to hold a candle to your teammate, in a sense. Do you think you had that pace to keep up with him today?
I actually think I could. He is quicker than me, I'm sure, but I think compared to other rounds, the deficit was less today, and I think it's so hard around here to break DRS. If I started near him, I could have just stuck with him. I think ultimately I'd struggle to beat him, but I think he would struggle to shake me off, and I would stay within his DRS.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those, we can always speculate about it, but at the end of the day, it's not gonna happen. And of course, because you started at the back of the grid, you were at a disadvantage. And I mean, coming from the back of the grid, you've fought some drivers with maybe drivers that you haven't necessarily had to come to fisticuffs with, and you haven't necessarily had to fight through as quickly as you did. Do you think that the different driving styles between those drivers, do you think that made it any harder, or do you think you just breezed past nice and easy? Because you did get through quite quickly.
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's different for each person because some people are quite. I'm guilty of this too. Sometimes I'm too passive and I let people through, or I give them too much space, and then others are the complete opposite.
Yeah, I mean it's easier to fight when you know who you're fighting, I think is the name of the game, and when you don't, it makes it slightly harder. And of course, that's
good point.
That's what the question sort of circles around, and that's just what I wanted to get out of you, whether it was more difficult to fight those at the back. But Owen, have you got anything?
No, nothing from me. Again, you covered it all.
Look at me, I'm covering it all. But well, two times in a row now. That's not bad going from me. But I think that's where we're going to leave it for tonight. All of the interviews have happened. We've all had a nice little debrief. Owen, have you got any final thoughts before we end off for tonight?
Yeah, just a couple. So obviously, a fantastic race for Ferrari in the constructors. But heading on to the next round of the season, which is Spa, and it is a sprint. So that is going to add a little extra level of spice that we haven't had in previous rounds. So join us for the next round, and we will see you next week.
Well, great way to end it off, and I've just interrupted you by just cutting in there. But definitely join us for next week, because hopefully Mr. McGurk will be back. And if the field has any of the sorts of pace that they had today, and if we get any of the sorts of mistakes that we might have had today out of Mr. Chenkovan, it can make it all so exciting. So make sure to stick around for next week's broadcast. But until then, it is goodbye.
Late on the brakes, goodness me, what a launch! The outside of turn 1 and takes the lead of the race.